That's the thing. Central planners, control freaks, and sociopaths from both sides of the political spectrum don't give a flying rat's ass about you, the lowly tax slave, the lowly serf or subject here in Canada. Recognize and realize that, people. I don't know what it's going to take. Here's more proof. John McCallum wants to substantially increase immigration to fill Canada's labor needs. Canada's immigration minister points to an aging population and looming labor shortage. Ugh, whatever. If Immigration Minister John McCallum gets his way, Canada will significantly increase immigration beyond its current record level as a way to fill the country's labor needs. Pointing to an aging population and looming labor shortages, McCallum made the pitch in Manila during a speech to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines on Friday. Unreal. So why not substantially increase the number of immigrants coming to Canada? And that is, I hope, what we're about to do, McCallum said, according to the transcript of his remarks obtained by CBC News. So if you've seen this old fuck, he's a boomer. He's one of these older fucks. Like I said, what it is think about if you were a farmer, right? If you were a farmer in any part of Canada, and as any farmer, they hire their children first because their children are born and raised. First of all, they do all the work for free, the chores for free, or they're slightly rewarded with whatever, get an allowance or whatever. But basically, you raise your kids to, and because they were born and raised in Canada on that farm, well, the living expense, the cost of living in that geographical area, in that geographical landmass, that doesn't change, right? They still have to function in that reality. But let's say, as you know, the father of the owner of the farm, and you're raising your kids, and you said, you know what? Well, I'd rather keep most of the profits for myself, tell you the truth, because I enjoy my entitled lifestyle. I want to pay you substantially lower than what you would need to have a healthy, prosperous life when you become an adult. I want to pay you less than that. And if you don't accept that, well, hey, you know what? There's some people down the road, let's say, you know, that farmer kicked those farmers, let's say, kicked their kids off their farm completely, and they're living in the gutter, so they're used to a lot lower living standards. Well, hey, we could go hire them to take on your job. They'll work for a whole lot less than you will, but you'd be like, but wait a minute, though. Wasn't the very premise that, you know, I'm your child, just like with nationalism, I'm part of your country, right? I'm part of your society. Isn't this whole thing that we're supposed to take care of each other? That's the whole fucking point of nationalism, or the pretense of a social contract, right? Is we're supposed to take care of each other. I mean, but like I said, businesses and governments have broken first of all, there's no such thing as a social contract, or even with the pretense of a social contract, central planners and governments and corporations have broke that fucking contract long ago, okay? NAFTA, all these bullshit where they can bring in slave and wage laborers from countries or foreigners from countries that are paid a whole lot less than, or live a lifestyle that's a whole lot less than what we currently enjoy, are used to in Canada or the US or England or places like that. Yeah, it's the same idea. It's the same fucking idea as McCallum saying, hey, well, we need these people. The reason why let me tell McCallum right here and right now. The reason why these positions aren't filled, it's not because Canadians are lazy and they don't want to assume or take up responsibility and roles or to take upon these tasks and these jobs, okay? What it is they don't want to work for fucking these ridiculously petty, puny wages that you're offering, where they're barely keeping their head above water, where there's no real prosperity, where it's just a constant fucking battle just to sustain yourself, where it's constant stresses and pressures about, am I going to have enough money left over after my paycheck to put a little bit aside to protect myself in case something happens in the future. That's what it's coming down to in this fucking country, not just Canada, the US, but a lot of these Western developed countries, is these old fucks, and predominantly, okay, they're the baby boomers. Let me make that very clear. If I haven't done enough in prior videos, let me make that clear enough for y'all. These people, and if you look at them, they're all fucking old people. Or cronies, like Justin Trudeau would be the very few exception. But look at who that fuckstick is. All right? He don't understand what it's like to be a regular Canadian, for fuck's sakes, and to pretend otherwise is just a joke. But think about it. Whether it's in a farm, a rural setting, or in a natural family setting, society, if you expand that out, you know, what they try to say, like, think about the kind of shit they espouse. We're nationalism and we're all one big happy family and sacrificing for the greater good. Who out of these governments and cronies, these corporatists, are sacrificing for any fucking greater good? First of all, I don't believe in that fucking premise at all. But even with that premise, who are they forcing to do it? It's all of the rest of Canada. It's not the cronies and the government fucks. What they're saying is, hey, you fuckers don't want to, you want to have a good living wage? And that's the thing. These fuckers were the ones that got to be so wealthy from asking and fighting to have that exact same shit. But that's the thing. The only way they got to get it, because they were fighting against, when they were burning their bras and all this shit, right, in the 60s or whatever. How do you think it happened? Obviously, their parents, the people in central planners and government fuckers back then, the cronies back then, well, they were like, they must have felt guilty enough to say, okay, yeah, we'll pass on some of our wealth. And that's why they created such a generous middle class for the boomer generation. But the boomers don't want to, they're hoarders. No! It's mine. None for you is what they're fucking saying. So it's not like like I say, it's not like these companies need laborers from foreign countries. They want cheap, dirt cheap slave labor. And because of globalism and these supposed trade agreements, which are not free trade agreements, and they even premise the bullshit lies that are espoused in their fucking names, like NAFTA, like a free trade. It's not free trade, okay? It's swapping of slavery. There's no freedom involved there. Or swapping of different slaves and the different levels and machinations of slavery, right? That's all it is. It's manipulating slavery. The race to the bottom. But yeah, I mean, if you live in Canada, I mean, look at the houses. I mean, look at where actually most industries are and where most supposed growth and prosperities happen, whether it's Vancouver, Ontario, or even before the oil crash with Alberta and places. Well, look at the prices to live in those places. How can we compete? We don't want to live like fucking sardines like some of these people, like especially the temporary foreign worker program. That's another fucking major aspect of this. These people come here, they'll live maybe 10 people all together or whatever, right? Because to them it's temporary. It's a few years. So let's put up with a lot of shit and live like sardines and pool our resources and our capital together, and then we'll take it back with us. But in the interim, that's another thing too. These foreign workers, whether they're temporary or permanent, right? They get to send their money back. So when you make, let's say, they might very well be able to work for much cheaper minimum wage jobs and send that money back, because once that money is converted to the currency from their country of origin, it's a whole lot more. The purchasing power at that stage, when they convert it to the currency of their country of origin, well, the people that they're sending their money to, or where they're stashing it, like so they can save it, so when they go back home, their purchasing power is being dramatically increased. So they're seeing their living standards actually rise, not just here in the country, because they're not used to making this kind of money, but even in their country of origin, when they finally go back there, everything's been a net win for them. For the lowly Canadian, unless we're willing to work for wage slaves that are, or wages that are even worse than slavery, right? Where you're actually losing, where you can't even sustain your livelihood. Yeah, we can't compete on that level. It can't be done. Just like I say, just like a farmer with his children. If you were a farm, let's say if you had a farm in Texas and you could get some, just like I say, the Canadian farm of Canada or all the provinces, yeah, the people in the current country of Canada that were born and raised natural citizens in this country, yes, fully admit we cannot compete with the puny wages that these foreigners, these immigrants will work for. It can't be done. And to try to force us to do so, I mean, like I said, where's the so-called nationalism, or where's the so-called protectionism, or caring about your country of origin, where your business is set up? Where's all that when it comes to these cronies? They don't give a flying fuck, or the government. They're just looking for the bottom line, how they themselves can benefit the most from the wage slaves and serfs, and they don't care who it is. So yeah, do not think, that's the thing, lowly Canadians, do not be nationalistic. Don't think that you have to support anybody when it comes to corporations or government in this country, because they don't give a flying fuck about you. And that's the truth of the fact. It's damn near time that Canadians, the overwhelming, the bulk majority of Canadians, the naturalized citizens of Canada, to fucking finally start to stand up and say, no. We refuse to compete and participate in this race to the bottom. Either you respect us, appreciate us, and treat us fairly, or yeah, you go ahead. You keep bringing in these fucking foreign workers, these immigrants, these people that try to keep us on that race to the bottom. You go ahead. But you're going to see that we're no longer going to be the consumers. So you'll have to sell. Not only will you have to bring in these foreign workers to make the products and to generate economic prosperity, but you're going to have to use them as the consumers as well. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.